The Cougars unveiled an explosive running game tonight against North Pocono, one which hit pay dirt on their very first possession. Second play from scrimmage, Ray Kovac takes the handoff from Gary Cruciani. He explodes through the North Pocono defensive front, and from there on to the end zone. Kovac goes 59 yards for the first touchdown in 10 quarters. Valley View scored against North Pocono, and the Cougars were up 6-0. Valley View also displayed a rugged defense tonight, led by Gene Delicati and Ken Kunchak, who put the clamps on Jeff Smith on this play. Valley View threatened on their second possession, moving to North Pocono's 21, but the Trojans came up with a defensive gem of their own, and Cruciani was sacked for a big loss. But they wouldn't be denied next time they touched the football. Cruciani on the option, turns it upfield, and at the last minute pitches to Prosciutti. He's a blur. 37 yards later, the Cougars are on the scoreboard again. They go on to roll tonight over North Pocono. In game number 2, Dunmore was up 11-6 over Central late in the first half, and they threatened again when Mark Suma intercepted a Central pass at his own 45 and returned it to the Golden Eagles' 25. But the Golden Eagles stiffened, and 2 straight quarterback sacks by Doug Zellers pushed the Bucks out of scoring range as the half ended. Dunmore would salt it away, however, in the third period, going on a 14-play, 71-yard drive, all of it on the ground with Bob and Bill Ruddy doing the bulk of the work. It was Bob getting scoring honors. He goes over from the 3. Dunmore goes on to beat Central tonight 25-6. The Blue Devils practically handed Scranton Prep their first touchdown tonight, fumbling this punt early in the first period. Scranton Prep picking it up at the Old Forge 19-yard line. 3 plays later, it was Dino DeMoro getting scoring honors. He bounced off at the line of scrimmage and went in from the 2. The extra point made it 7-0 Prep. The next time the Cavaliers had the ball, they struck like lightning when Kevin Cawley took the ball around the left side. He got a key block at the corner and went off on a 46-yard touchdown run. Prep took a 14-0 lead over Old Forge. When the Cavaliers got the ball back, they made it 3 of 3, going 66 yards in 9 plays. The big one, a 4th down call from the 16. Timmy Holmes, a strike to Mike Conaboy over the arms of defender Kyle Parker. Prep led 21-0. Old Forge would get on the board just before half on a 7-yard touchdown pass, but it was far too short as Prep defeated the Devils 34-12. In game number 2, West led Central 13-0 at half and then drove deep into Central territory in the third period, knocking on the door once again. But a 4th down pass would fall incomplete, and the Golden Eagles had a chance to get back into this one. But on 1st and 10 from their own 26, the snap from Central was fumbled, and West would recover, getting one more chance. 4 plays later, a controversial call. Joe Spano goes the final 5 yards. It appears to fumble, but it was ruled that he broke the plane of the goal line before losing the football. West led 19-0. Bobby Kennedy then hit Bill Kennedy for the 2-point conversion. The final was 21-0 as West wins their second in as many games this season. White-shirted Valley View came out fired up tonight, trying to rebound from last week's loss to Riverside. But Scranton Tech was also up to the task, and this Rico Williams interception gave the Red Raiders excellent field position at the Valley View 32 early in the contest. But the Raiders couldn't move, and they turned the ball back over to the Cougars. Valley View would take advantage of a break to score first when E.J. Weston picked off this Brian Davis pass at the Tech 33. 4 plays later, Rigo Vangarelli got scoring honors from 5 yards out as the Cougars go on to beat Scranton Tech tonight 20-6. At Dunmore tonight, the Bucks took a 14-6 lead into the locker room at halftime, and the second half turned into a defensive battle. Here, Riverside's Dave Frabel comes up with a great stop on Dunmore's Bob Ruddy in the backfield. Later, Riverside would threaten, but Dunmore's Van Chiavacci comes up with a stellar play of his own, intercepting the Tim Hahn pass at the Bucks' 2-yard line to stop this Vikings threat. Riverside would threaten again later in the final period. On 4th down, substitute quarterback Glenn Kempa finds Mike Audi with a 21-yard pass, but it's ruled out of bounds, and Dunmore would hang on to their lead. The Bucks would finally secure the victory with just over a minute to go. Again, it was defense as Mark Xenophon snuffed out the final Riverside hope. The final was Dunmore 14, Riverside 6.
Well, I felt Riverside had a fine football team, and I didn't think we'd move the ball as well as we possibly had. And, of course, they got a fine football team. They played us very, very tough, and we're just happy to come out with the victory.
The Bucks go to 3-0 with the victory, while the Vikings lose for the first time this season. In game number 1 tonight at Old Forge, the blue-shirted Blue Devils got the game's first break midway through period 1 as Kyle Parker grabs the tip pass at the Tech 48-yard line. The Devils would then go on a drive which included this screen pass from Dave Krzyzewski to Bobby Rinaldi, which picked up 12 yards. But Old Forge could get no closer than the Red Raiders' 27. Tech recovers the Old Forge fumble on a 4th and 3, and that would be costly to Old Forge because the Red Raiders go on to win their first game of the season tonight, beating the Blue Devils 6-0. In game number 2, Central held a 7-6 lead over Lakeland in the second period when the Golden Eagles' Ellis Craig used a super effort to pick up 15 yards, but he lost the football and Lakeland would recover at the Central 46. 3 more plays would net just 2 yards for the Chiefs, however. Behind a rugged defense, Central goes on to win 13-6, their second straight victory after 3 losses. At Dunmore, the unbeaten Bucks struck quick in the second half. Leading 14-6, Bob Ruddy drops the opening kickoff of the third period, but he finds the handle and heads straight up the middle, finding a big hole. He had one man to beat, made a nifty move at the 35, and was gone. 85 yards, and the Bucks lead Scranton Prep 21-6. The next time the Bucks had the ball, they moved to the Prep 15-yard line, where this 33-yard Harold McNaughton field goal made it 24-6 Dunmore. After the two teams exchanged fumbles, Dunmore took possession one more time, and Bill Ruddy smacked the middle of the line and just kept going. A 30-yard run was Bill Ruddy's third score of the night. The Bucks rolled over the Cavaliers 31-13. They're 5-0, and they'll stay a step ahead of the rest of the teams in the Big 11. Jim, in tonight's Big 11 action, Dunmore goes to 6-0 on the season, and they keep their lead in the Big 11 Conference, while Valley View and West Scranton also matched victories, and they remain tied for second place in the conference. We have highlights from all 3 games tonight in the Big 11, and we'll start with the contest between Dunmore and Mid-Valley. In game number 1 tonight at Dunmore, the Bucks against Mid-Valley, and Dunmore gets the early break when the Spartans fumble the football. The Bucks recover at the 50-yard line, and that would lead to their first touchdown of the night. It came just 3 plays later when Mark Xenophon on the option pitches to Bob Ruddy, and as he's done so many times this season, Ruddy breaks the big one. 50 yards and the touchdown. With just over 3 minutes gone in the game, Dunmore had a 7-0 lead. The Bucks would add to their lead the next time they touched the football, going 65 yards in 8 plays, with Bill Ruddy's 27-yarder the big play. Bob Ruddy would get scoring honors once again going over the right side. Dunmore is 6-0 after a 35-0 win tonight against Mid-Valley. At Peckville, Scranton Central trailed 6-0 against Valley View and had a 1st and goal at the 9, but the Cougars' defense shuts the door to hold their lead. Valley View would come right back, and behind the running of Jim McCormick moves into Central territory, where their drive stalled and it stayed 6-0 at the half. The Cougars, however, would break this one open after intermission, going on to post win number 5 against just 1 loss on the season. At Scranton Memorial Stadium, with West leading Old Forge 2-0, the Invaders moved to the Devils' 28-yard line early in the third period. But Old Forge's Kyle Parker puts an end to that threat when he intercepts Bobby Kennedy's pass at the 9-yard line. The next time they have the football, West threatened once again, keeping the drive alive with this 4th down completion to Bill Stetzer at the Old Forge 12. And 3 plays later, Joe Spano gets the insurance points on the 1-yard blast. West moves out to a 9-0 lead. Old Forge tries to come back, but Kennedy intercepts Dave Krzyzewski's pass at the Invaders' 20. It snuffs out the Devils' drive, and West goes on for the victory to stay at a second-place tie in the Big 11 with Valley View. Week number 6 in the Big 11 wraps up tomorrow afternoon. The big game, of course, in Taylor. The Riverside Vikings, now a half game out of second place, will try to move back into a tie with Valley View and West Scranton when they host the Abington Heights Comets. With the story this Friday night in the Big 11, I'm Sid Michaels in the Scranton Newsroom. Jim?
Jim, as you mentioned, there were 3 games in the Big 11 Conference this Friday night. 2 of those involved teams that were tied for second. Valley View and West Scranton, both 5-1 going into tonight's action, tied with Riverside for second place, a game behind Dunmore. The unbeaten Bucks, of course, playing tomorrow afternoon. We now have highlights from tonight's action in the Big 11 Conference.
It just wasn't Old Forge's night tonight. Valley View exploded for 4 first-period touchdowns. The first came just 4 plays into the ball game when Jim McCormick found the hole and outraced the Blue Devils secondary to the end zone. The extra point made it 7-0 Cougars. Old Forge then moved into Valley View territory, aided by 3 penalties, and this Dave Krzyzewski to Kyle Parker pass, but the drive stalled at the 30. But on the first play from scrimmage, Jerry Prosciutti swept left, headed down the sidelines. He would make a nifty cutback at the 45-yard line and is gone. 70 yards, puts the Cougars up 14-0. They go on to beat Old Forge and set up their showdown with first-place Dunmore a week from tonight. At Memorial Stadium tonight, referee George Wilson got a flag from his colleagues on his white shoes, which he reportedly had to borrow after he locked his other ones in the car. As for game action, the West Scranton Invaders would go on to post their 6th victory against 1 loss tonight against Scranton Tech. The strangest play happened in the 3rd period. When West Bobby Kennedy threw the screen pass, it was deflected into the air and grabbed by Tony Zygmunt. As Zygmunt tried to fight his way upfield, he was hit, and the ball popped loose. It started this mad scramble for the football, which was eventually recovered by West Scranton. The Invaders would stay tied for second place with tonight's victory in the Big 11 Conference. At Dunmore tonight, Prep appear to have the game sewed up, leading Lakeland 14-13 and stopping the Chiefs on 4th down with 3 minutes to go. But a couple of plays later, Prep would hand the football right back at the 37-yard line when the Chiefs recovered this fumble. Lakeland then went on a march that included a 4th down completion from Bill Conway to Joby Fawcett, which moved the ball to the Prep 17. Then after a 3-yard loss and running without a huddle, Conway to Bill Trathan is the game winner. 20 yards for the touchdown. Lakeland beats Prep tonight 21-14.
Of course, the big game tomorrow as the Big 11 wraps up this weekend of action will feature the Dunmore Bucks at Abington Heights. Dunmore, on top in the conference, will try to keep its unbeaten record. They're 6-0 at this point. Also on tomorrow's slate, the Riverside Vikings at 5-1 will try to stay a game behind the Bucks when they host the Golden Eagles of Scranton Central. With the story this Friday night from the Scranton Newsroom, I'm Sid Michaels. Jim?
There it is. Break it up. Go, Jim. Put a face mask. Left side.
Jim, 2 games very important in the Eastern Conference Northern Division playoff races played tonight. One in Class A, of course, up at Peckville, where Dunmore played Valley View. The other was at Dunmore, where Scranton Prep hosted Riverside, 2 teams battling for a Class B playoff berth. We have highlights from both of those games, starting with the contest between Prep and Riverside. In Game 1 tonight, Prep got a golden opportunity on the opening kickoff when the Vikings fumbled the football, and the Cavaliers would recover at the Riverside 29. 3 plays could net just 3 yards, and then on 4th down, Paul Rostenkovich sacks Tim Holmes, and Riverside takes over. The Vikings would move to the Prep 36 in a drive highlighted by this Tim Hahn to Walt Deininger pass, but that's where Prep stiffened and took over on downs. The Cavaliers go on to beat Riverside tonight 14-0, and they stay alive for an Eastern Conference Class B playoff spot. The big one at Peckville tonight, Valley View trailed Dunmore 9-0 with a minute left in the first half when Gary Cruciani on the bomb finds Jerry Prosciutti behind the Dunmore secondary. 55 yards later, the Cougars were back in it, trailing at halftime 9-6. Turnovers hurt Valley View tonight. On their first possession of the 3rd period, Jerry Prosciutti on the sweep would pick up 10 yards, but he fumbles the football and Dunmore recovers. 7 plays later on 4th and 4 from the Valley View 17, a great fake by quarterback Mark Senefont, who then hits Harold Magnotta in the end zone for the touchdown, and the Bucks led 15-9. Valley View struck quickly on the ensuing kickoff, taken by Rick Kovac deep in his own territory. He breaks the big return, bringing it up the far sideline before Bob Ruddy made a touchdown-saving tackle at the Valley View 46. 2 plays later, Kovac with a run up the middle and a marvelous second effort. He breaks into the open, 35 yards for the touchdown, and with 5 minutes left in the third period, Valley View is back in it, down 15-12. Midway through the fourth period, another turnover spelled disaster for Valley View. Jim McCormick fumbles the football. The Bucks recover at the Valley View 35. With Bill Ruddy doing the bulk of the work on this 1-second effort carry, the Bucks move the football inside the 5 to go first and goal at the 2. And 2 plays later, Bob Ruddy goes over the top for the clinching touchdown. The Bucks secured a 23-12 victory and an 8-0 record. Coach Jack Henses.
Our kids played a hell of a football game, and so did they. And they should be proud of their kids just as well as we are. And it was the turnovers that made the difference.
So there's still one more day left to play in weekend number 8 in the Big 11, but the playoff picture a little bit more clearer for Dunmore tonight, as they are now in the driver's seat and in control of their own destiny, while in Class B, Scranton Prep stays alive with their big win over Riverside tonight. With the story in the Big 11 in the Scranton newsroom, this is Sid Michaels. Jim? Jim, a week ago, all eyes were on Dunmore as they firmed up their position for the Eastern Conference Class A Northern Division Football Championship. Tonight, all eyes were on West Scranton as they try to firm up their position for an Eastern Conference Northern Division Class A wildcard spot. And both weeks, the opponent was Valley View. That was one of 3 games on tonight's schedule. We'll start our highlights with the contest between the Dunmore Bucks and the Scranton Tech Red Raiders. Game 1 tonight, after they recovered a Dunmore fumble, Tech's Rico Williams took the pitch out, turned left, headed upfield, and exploded on a 45-yard run that put the ball at the Dunmore 3-yard line. 3 plays later, the Red Raiders stunned the unbeaten Bucks with a Brian Davis to Amos Kendrick's touchdown pass that ended 6-0 Tech. Dunmore took the ensuing kickoff. They went 34 yards in 6 plays before they fumbled it away at the Tech 26. But the next time they got their hands on the ball, it took them 5 plays and 44 yards to score, with Bob Ruddy getting scoring honors from the 13. Bob and Bill Ruddy both went over the 1,000-yard rushing mark for the season tonight. The Bucks went to 9-0 with the win over Tech. At Memorial Stadium tonight, Central Trail Prep 6-0 began a drive inside their own 20 and used everything, including this end around by Brian Leggett, which moved the ball to the Prep 20-yard line. Then on 4th down and 5 from that point, Rob Waronko lofted a strike to Michael Anderson for the touchdown. It put Central ahead 7-6, but Prep came on in the second half and came from behind to beat Central tonight. In game number 3, Valley View turnovers spelled doom for the Cougars for the 2nd straight week. Turnovers and a rock-hard West Scranton defense that kept the Cougars off the scoreboard tonight in Peckville. Trailing 14-0 in the 4th period, Valley View's Gary Cruciani steps up into the pocket. He fires the long bomb to Tom Krompaski, but the ball is batted in the air and Tony Zygmunt intercepts. He'll turn it upfield and returns the ball all the way to the 47-yard line of Valley View. Later, with the Cougars still playing catch-up, Cruciani is intercepted again, this time by Mark Granahan, who picks up a head of steam and a wall of blockers. Granahan goes all the way down to the Valley View 17. And then 6 plays and those 17 yards later, all covered by Joe Spano, West scores again, 22-0, a win that keeps them very much alive in the Big 11 and Eastern Conference playoff race. Weekend number 9 of the Big 11 wraps up tomorrow afternoon. One important game will be at Mid-Valley, where the Spartans host the Riverside Vikings. The Vikings are the front runners in the Class B playoff race, although they have not yet locked up that playoff position. With the story this Friday night in the Big 11 from the Scranton newsroom, this is Sid Michaels. Jim? Jim, it's a light night of action in the Big 11. There were just 2 games on the schedule. One of those was the annual rivalry between Scranton Central and Scranton Tech, the contest they tried to get switched to Thanksgiving, but were turned down. And the other is the game with which we'll start tonight's highlights, the Abington Heights Comets at the Cavaliers of Scranton Prep. Abington Heights got the first break of their game tonight when Paul D'Angelo recovered this Prep fumble at the Cavaliers 35. 8 running plays later, the Comets were on the board when Steve Crounce took it in by himself from the 2. The extra point made it 7-0 Abington. Late in the first half, Prep would get on the scoreboard on a 48-yard drive, keyed by this Tim Holmes to Michael Conaboy pass. It covered 14 yards to the Abington 21. One play later, that same combination clicked again, this time for the 21-yard touchdown that would tie the game at 7. The Cavaliers go on to post a 14-7 win tonight to keep alive their slim Class B playoff hopes. In game number 2 tonight at Memorial Stadium, Central increased a 20-0 halftime lead after Scott Smith intercepted this third period Brian Davis pass. He returned the ball all the way to the Tech 3-yard line. It took just one play to put 7 more points on the board. As Greg Grahowski spun into the end zone, it was 27-0 Golden Eagles. After Tech ran 3 plays and punted, Central went on a 60-yard drive that ended in this apparent Brian Legan touchdown around the right side. But a penalty would nullify that run and move the ball back to the 12. Next play, Ellis Craig took the ball up the gut, and he apparently scored, but that too was called back by an illegal motion penalty. Tech would eventually hold the Eagles, but Central would hold on to win their 4th straight victory over their traditional rivals. This weekend of action in the Big 11 will wrap up tomorrow afternoon. There are 2 important games, one in Class A for the Eastern Conference wild card playoff spot, as the West Scranton Invaders will play at Mid-Valley. The Invaders trying to stay in the driver's seat for that position. And at Taylor, the Class B championship could be Riverside's if the Vikings could beat their arch rival, the Old Forge Blue Devils. With the story tonight in the Big 11 from the Scranton Newsroom, this is Sid Michaels. Jim? Jim, on this final Friday night of action in the Big 11, all eyes, of course, were on Scranton Memorial Stadium, where the West Scranton Invaders had to beat the Riverside Vikings to advance to the playoffs as the Class A wildcard team. But there was also an important story unfolding down in Old Forge, because that's where the Dunmore Bucks were trying to win the outright Big 11 championship. They were trying to complete their first ever 11-0 season, and they were trying to run their unbeaten streak to 14 games over 2 years. We have highlights from both those games, and we'll start with action from the game in Old Forge. With several starters out with injuries, the Bucks had their hands full with Old Forge tonight. Mark Senefont is sacked by the Devils' Joe Slusark on this play. It forced Dunmore to give up the football in Old Forge territory. The next time the Bucks had the football, 11 plays covered 55 yards, with 31 Mike DiNapoli and number 43 Bob Ruddy doing most of the work in the drive. That march was capped by Bob Ruddy's pretty 15-yard touchdown run that made the score 6-0. The Bucks would complete their unbeaten Big 11 title-winning season tonight. Their unbeaten streak is now 14 games, and they'll face Williamsport next Saturday in the Eastern Conference Class A playoffs. At Memorial Stadium in Scranton tonight, Western Riverside 7-7 in the third period, but the Invaders' Mike Emiliani intercepts this Tim Hahn pass, giving West the football at their own 24. It also kicked off what would be the game-winning drive, keyed by this nice 18-yard pickup by Joe Spano that moved the ball to near midfield. 9 plays later, it was 3rd and 13 from the 29. Bobby Kennedy and Tony Zygmunt clicked on the big play.
It was tough. I just had to get behind the defender, and Bobby Kennedy just lofted it up there, and it was too high for the defender, and I just reached up and I caught it.
Were you able to see the ball coming in?
Yeah, I saw the ball very well. It was very clear.
West got one more touchdown in the fourth period on a 65-yard drive capped by another Zygmunt score. The Invaders beat the Vikings, and they'll visit Coughlin as the Class A wildcard playoff team a week from tomorrow.
And you know, the kids played right from they practiced hard right from August, and they played hard every game, and I'll tell you, that's all you could expect from them. I'm happy. I'm very, very happy about it, Sid.
So the Big 11 Conference has every reason to be proud as they wrap up play tomorrow afternoon with a couple of games to end the 1985 regular season. 3 teams from the conference will be advancing to the Eastern Conference playoffs next weekend: the Dunmore Bucks, the West Scranton Invaders, and the Riverside Vikings. With the story from this Friday night in the Scranton Newsroom, this is Sid Michaels. Jim?
The handoff pass goes to...
This one looked like a blowout early as Coughlin scored the first 2 times they had the ball. Matt Walsh got both touchdowns. The second from over the top. It was 12-0 with still a minute and a half left in the first quarter. But West came back suddenly like lightning in the form of a Bolt named Tony Zygmunt. On the ensuing kickoff, Zygmunt brought the ball up the center of the field. He hit the wedge, broke through, and from there outraced everybody to the end zone. An 87-yard return makes it 12-7 Coughlin. On West's next possession, 2nd and 8 from their own 27, quarterback Bobby Kennedy found Zygmunt alone on the near sideline. There was nobody in front of the West receiver. It covered 73 yards, and the Invaders jumped out in front 13-12. With the same score in the third period, West got what would prove to be the winning touchdown when Bobby Kennedy picked up the fumble and had clear sailing to the end zone. 30 yards later, it was 19-13 West. Coughlin pulled to within a point early in the fourth period when Walsh capped a 76-yard drive with a 1-yard score to make it 19-18. On the 2-point conversion try, Ed Osmulski of Coughlin had stopped short of the goal line, and West Scranton held their 1-point lead. Coughlin had 2 more chances to win the ball game, but field goals of 26 and 32 yards were off the mark, and then with a minute and a half to go, the Invaders put the seal on it in the form of a Bill Fox interception. West Scranton defeats Coughlin 19-18.
Everybody out there played a heck of a ball game. I got to give a lot of credit to 45 kids. Defensively, I think we did an outstanding job. Offensively, we had a little trouble blocking them, but we did what we had to do.
The win was the 11th against just 1 loss this season for West, while Coughlin closes at 9-3. Game number 1, Mid-Valley's first Suburban Conference contest against Wallenpaupack. The Spartans to the Buckhorns 10 on their first possession, but they fumble and Wallenpaupack comes up with the football. The Spartans got the ball back and they were on the move again. Sean Gresbin with the pass to Brother Brian. This play covers 26 yards to the Paupack 36. 7 plays later, Sean Gresbin fumbles the snap and he recovers, and then finds Brother Brian in the end zone for the touchdown. It was 6-0 Mid-Valley early in tonight's game at Troop. Game number 2, Tech versus Prep. The Red Raiders on the march late in period number 2, but they fumble at the Cavaliers' 20, and Jed Wallace recovers for Prep to end the threat. It ended 8-8 at halftime. The next time Tech had the football, the third period, quarterback Mike Marichak is trapped in the backfield, but he wiggles free and lets it fly. The bomb to Chris Getz, who makes the catch. 49 yards for the game winner for Tech, the final 15-8. In game number 3 at Scranton Memorial Stadium, it was the Golden Eagles of Scranton Central trying to beat a team from Valley View for the first time since 1979. Fourth period, Valley View leading 12-8 and driving, but they fumble at the 36 and the Golden Eagles recover. Central then moves into Cougars territory behind the running of Bob Rutkowski, who picks up 24 on this carry to the Valley View 40, but the Golden Eagles were forced to punt and the Cougars ran out the final 5 minutes to hang on for the 12-8 victory. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Carbondale on the move against Mid-Valley. Wayne Imbelzano carries 5 straight times to the Spartans' 37-yard line. Mid-Valley's defense held, though, and the Chargers were turned away. Later, Carbondale area to the 5 of Mid-Valley, 4th and 1, but the Spartans hold to keep the game deadlocked in Troop. Our second game was in Dunmore, where Scranton Central's Bill Laser fired this 22-yard touchdown pass to Nick Chiaro late in the first half. The 2-point conversion made it 16-0 Golden Eagles over Prep. The Cavaliers would mount a drive late in the first half. Quarterback Frank Padula on the keeper from the Prep 44-yard line. Padula will break a number of tackles on his way to a 30-yard gain. He's finally pulled down from behind as the clock runs out in the first half on Prep. Central goes on to shut out the Cavaliers. Game number 3 was at Scranton Memorial Stadium tonight, where at halftime it was Dunmore 21 and West Scranton nothing. The Bucks wasted little time in the third period. Frank DiPietro takes the ball and he powers his way downfield, running through the West defense, breaking tackles, a 17-yard gain. Still in that drive, Bucks 2nd and 30 from the West 41-yard line. Tom Marquez drills the pass to Ken Quigley, who picks up 28 of the 30 yards in this play. 2 plays later, DiPietro goes in for the touchdown as the Bucks defeat the Invaders tonight in Scranton. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Dunmore advances to the Prep 45 in their first possession, but this interception by Mark Bassini ends that drive. The Cavaliers handed the ball right back on their first play from scrimmage, and then Dunmore did the same, giving the Cavaliers possession again, this time at the Dunmore 47. Prep would move to the Bucks 24 before coming up empty, but Prep pulls off the major upset tonight, beating Dunmore 6-0. In game number 2, the Riverside Vikings stunned a Valley View home crowd by scoring 3 times in the first half to take a 20-0 lead at the break. The Vikings didn't waste any time scoring in their first possession of the second half. John Starts turns the right side. He picks up 20 to the Valley View 45-yard line. Riverside continues the march. Elio Dominic, the quick hitter to Joe DeSimone. That moves the ball to the Valley View 26. And then on the very next play, it's Mike Gaughan taking the handoff. And this fine run through the middle all the way for the touchdown. Riverside surprises Valley View 26-0. Meanwhile, at Memorial Stadium, game number 3, all North Pocono. Brian Kelly with a quick hitter up the middle. He goes all the way down to the 34 of Tech, a 17-yard gain, as the Trojans defeat the Red Raiders 28-0. It's their second overall win of the season and their first in the Big 11 this year. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports.
If this republic were to last
50 yards total offense, shutting down the Spartans. Meanwhile, the offense put a lid on it with 2:33 remaining. Dave Barbetti goes 8 yards on the trap. Old Forge wins for the third time against no losses. Mid-Valley falls to 3-1. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Valley View did not take very long to score. It was just their third play from scrimmage when Corey Castellani took this handoff and went 47 yards for the touchdown. The Cougars missed the extra point and they led Pittston area 6-0. The Patriots would hang tough in this one, though, behind the running of Rob Jenkins, picking up some nice yardage on this play. And when it was over, the Patriots and the Cougars battled to a 20-all standoff. Game number 2 at Dunmore, the Bucks led 7-0, and they were threatening in the second period. But a fourth down pass at the Abington Heights 20 fell incomplete. Abington Heights took over and tried to get something going. Rob Harris gets the call, but this one would end 21-13 in favor of Dunmore. Game number 3, Old Forge and Bishop O'Hara, a battle of unbeatens. Old Forge's Jim Tricarico breaks loose, breaks a tackle, and goes off on a 55-yard touchdown run. It gave the Blue Devils a 12-0 lead over the Bruins in the third period. Later in the quarters, the Devils got a break when the defense jarred the ball loose, and Old Forge's Frank Stanko would finally fall on the ball at the O'Hara 1-yard line. Just one play later, Dan Zakowski would blast over for the score, and a 20-0 Old Forge lead. The Bruins added one late in the game, but Old Forge goes on to post the victory to stay undefeated. O'Hara loses for the first time this season. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Scranton Tech's first possession. Quarterback Mike Marichank escapes a heavy rush. He turns and unleashes the bomb. It's caught by Joe Coughlin, who completes the 55-yard scoring play. 6-0 Red Raiders. Valley View came right back, going 50 yards in 3 plays. Corey Castellani had the key 18-yard pickup to aid this drive, and he also got the touchdown, a 2-yarder, but Scranton Tech beats Valley View tonight 28-24. Game number 2, Western Wayne against Mid-Valley. Wildcats with the ball in their own 36. Quarterback Mike Wilson goes across the middle to Sean Kovaleski. He will go all the way for the apparent 64-yard touchdown, but it was called back by a holding penalty. And on the next play, Mid-Valley's Mike Pollock intercepts this pass. He will turn it upfield and go 25 yards for the touchdown in tonight's game at Mid-Valley. In game number 3, Old Forge trailing Montrose 12-8 in the third quarter, but Joe Zabelski gets 6 on this keeper, 14-12 Old Forge. The Devils recovered a fumble after the kickoff and got this 21-yard scoring pass from Zabelski to John Tellish. But that was called back because of a hold, and the same two had to do it again. 2 plays later, 16 yards. Old Forge stays unbeaten, beating Montrose tonight in Old Forge. In game number 4 at Scranton Memorial Stadium, Abington Heights trails Scranton Central 24-21 midway through the fourth quarter. The Comets began their winning drive after Scott Reese intercepts this Scranton Central pass at the Comets' 46-yard line. 9 plays later, Billy James takes the ball. He goes 7 yards, and Abington Heights leads 27-24. 10 seconds left. Central at the Comets' 10-yard line. 4th down and 4, but the pass falls incomplete, and Abington Heights hangs on for the victory. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Riverside inside the Old Forge 10 on their first possession, but the Devils hold and take over. Vikings second turn with the football at the Devils' 22. Elio Dominic is hammered by Jim Matei on 4th down. Again, Old Forge holds. The next time the Vikings got the ball, Dominic with the bomb to John Connell. It's a perfect pass, and Connell goes all the way to the Old Forge 20 before he's finally dragged down from behind. 3 plays later, again the Devils' defense with the big play. Dave Barbetti intercepts in the end zone to keep the Vikings off the board. 4 times in the first half, Old Forge stopped Riverside inside the 25, but the Vikings scored twice in the 4th period to beat the Devils 14-0. At Memorial Stadium, Dunmore up 7-6 in the 3rd. First possession of the period behind the running of Rory Altman. They went to the Tech 2-yard line, but the Bucks fumbled the football. The Red Raiders recovered, and that ended the threat. The next time the Bucks got their hands on the ball, they'd go 69 yards in 7 plays. Tom Golden with the 13-yard scoring run. Dunmore goes on to beat Tech tonight. One of the top teams in the Big 11 was in action tonight in Dunmore in game number 3, where the North Pocono Trojans were the guest of the Prep Cavaliers. 4th period, game tied at 7. North Pocono's Brad Smith goes 3 yards with 5.5 minutes to go, 14-7 Trojans. Prep comes back. This pass to Joe Kozarowski moves the ball to the North Pocono 41-yard line, but on the next play, the Cavaliers lost the football and the game as North Pocono recovers the fumble, and the Trojans hang on for the 14-7 victory. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Scranton Prep against Valley View. The Cavaliers' Mike O'Hara on 4th and 2 picks up the first down at the Cougars' 44. But 7 plays later, the drive would break down as the Valley View defense held and forced the punt. Later, the Cougars with the football on the keeper. Rob Pizzalia turns it upfield. He takes off on a 47-yard run. The Cougars go on to beat Scranton Prep tonight 16-6 in Big 11 football action at Peckville. Game number 2, Scranton Memorial Stadium. Scranton Central on the move against West Scranton. Bill Laser hits Phil Robeson for the 12-yard gain to the Invaders' 32-yard line. But just 2 plays later, Laser passes, and he's intercepted by Mike Molinaro to end the threat. Central, though, comes from behind in the second half to beat West Scranton 14-7. At Old Forge, game number 3, the Blue Devils led 21-7 in the third period and then let the defense do the work. Jim Tricarco intercepts the Carbondale area pass of the Old Forge 10. Later, the Chargers again in Blue Devils territory, 4th and 8. This time, John Tellish with a big hit stops Carbondale area well short of the first down. Then, Tricarco puts the icing on it in the 4th period, a 22-yard touchdown run. He also went over the 1,000-yard rushing mark for the season. Old Forge stays unbeaten with their victory over Carbondale area. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Game number 1, Valley View against Mid-Valley. The Cougars' Dave Silvestrini intercepts this pass at the Mid-Valley 38-yard line. Valley View was in business in good field position. On the very next play, the handoff goes to Corey Castellanti. He bursts through the left side, and it turns into a foot race to the end zone, won by Castellanti. 38 yards, the 2-point conversion makes it 8-0 Valley View. On their next possession, the Cougars go 42 yards in 10 plays. Rob Pizzalia muscles it in for the touchdown. Valley View over Mid-Valley tonight 30-0. In game number 2, Prep's first possession of period number 3, Mike O'Hara drills the pass to a diving Jed Wallace. The extra point tied this one at 14. West would take the kickoff and advance inside the Prep 40, but that's where their drive broke down and they were forced to punt in tonight's game at Dunmore High School Stadium. Game number 3 was at Scranton Memorial Stadium tonight, where the Abington Heights Comets had an 18-14 lead over Scranton Tech in the 4th period. With a little over a minute to go in the game at their own 20, Tech looked doomed. But quarterback Mike Marichak flings this bomb down the middle of the field to Arthur Askew. He catches it on the fly and races all the way to the Abington Heights 19-yard line before he was finally caught. One play later, Marichak rolls out of the pocket, and again he fires, and again it was Askew, 19 yards for the score. The Red Raiders led 20-18. Abington Heights had 54 seconds to get into position to win, but this interception ends their hopes as Tech picks up the stunning victory tonight. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports. Lakeland recovered a Dunmore fumble and won 84 yards in 9 plays in the second period. Blaine Fawcett throws to Jim Hill. Officials said Hill broke the plane of the goal line before losing the football. The touchdown made it 7-0 Chiefs. Late in quarter number 2, Dunmore playing beat the clock. Tom Marquez to Todd Hartshorn puts the ball in the 6 out of bounds. And then with 5 seconds left in the half, Marquez to Tom Golden. The Bucks missed the extra point, 7-6 Lakeland at the break. The teams came out for the second half, with Dunmore getting the first opportunity to score in period number 3. The Bucks had a 1st and goal just inside the 10 but could not get into the end zone, and then Bob James blocks the field goal try. It stayed 7-6. Moments later, after Dunmore recovered a fumble, Tom DePietro would score from 5 yards out. Dunmore missed the 2-point try. It was 12-7 Bucks. 4th period now, Lakeland going on a 52-yard march. The key play, a great diving catch by Bob Goodrich at the Dunmore 19. And then with 37 seconds to go in the game, 4th and goal at the 1, James for the touchdown. Lakeland, the dramatic winner over Dunmore.
They've had a lot of adversity throughout the year, and we've had a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys. A little bit more valleys than peaks, but we hung in there tough, and we're so proud of our kids. You know, they just played their hearts out tonight, and it was a great game.
The defending Eastern Conference champs now await the outcome of tomorrow's North Pocono Valley View game. If the Cougars win, Lakeland goes to the playoffs. A Trojans victory puts North Pocono in the Eastern Conference Class A postseason. Sid Michaels, Eyewitness Sports.
The final score, the Bucks 12,